It's the beautiful knowing of when to release and when just to be. And today is the first day of fall. It is the autumnal equinox, where the equal means that the day and the night is equally as long today. And fall, that changing of seasons, is almost archetypal around the world for the spirit of letting go. It almost calls us to do as the leaves do and release and let go, which is a spiritual practice. It's a very important spiritual practice, and I know a lot of people automatically think of the burning shredding bowl in unity. It is not a one and done checkbox item. It is something that we use as a spiritual tool of illumination, and Reverend Kathy has been talking about the 12 powers, that spiritual power that we use all the time. And it invites us to really turn in and consider how the power of elimination, that idea of releasing, removing, denying, denouncing, and letting go, can work more in our lives when we can bring just a little bit of consciousness around it to be intentional about how we're using it. And so just for a minute, kind of for fun, I want you to consider that this isn't just a cliche or a unity thing, that this is a worldwide, it cuts through many. Actually, I can't really think of a religion or a spiritual path where it's not part of it. And so I want you to just kind of entertain how important it is if it's in all these different spiritual paths. The first one, if you go to the first slide, is in Hinduism. On the actual equinox, they have a saying that Shiva, which is a Hindu god, actually sits as Ardhanarishvana. And what that means is Shiva, the male god, and his wife, Parvati, on the other side, they actually become one in unity. And it only happens on the equinox because it's an invitation to see Shiva is the destroyer. He is the god that destroys. And he destroys evil, which is really what no longer serves us, so that something can be rebuilt. It's a very active process. So the male energy is very active. Just like in unity, we say that male energy, the father god, is very active. The mother god, Uma or Parvati, on the other side, she's very receptive. So she opens to the renewal. She is allowing, and she's fertile, so that everything that has come from the destruction goes into the fertility of something new arising. So Shiva is the actively letting go, and the Parvati is the receptive to letting it be. In the next slide, we talk about just some basic Chinese philosophy. It's in the Tao. It's also in the I Ching of yin and yang. It's this active idea of actively balancing change by the yin side, which is, again, the receptive female energy, and the yang side, which is the active letting go and rebuilding. The same concept is here. And in the Tao, trusting the universe and letting go is a very, very big part of that. So the power of letting go in Taoist philosophy really lies in the ability to create space for the universe to work it out. We create space for natural law and spiritual law to do what it does. And we try to flow with it instead of against it. Does that sound just a little unity to you at all? So in the Tao, that's what this time of year is also calling us to do. So where could you make a little room for God, for the universe, for spiritual law to work it out? Where could you go with that natural law, that spiritual law, go with the flow more? It would help you solve your problem more than trying to change something or go against the flow. That's what it's inviting us to look at. And the next one, this power of elimination also works sometimes to our detriment. as in the story of Greek mythology with Persephone and Demeter. So Persephone was the daughter of Demeter, and Demeter was the goddess of the harvest and fertility and the earth. So this is a story that's told in the fall in Greek mythology. And Hades, the god of the underworld, comes and steals Persephone, drags her down to the underworld and says, "You will be my wife." Demeter is grief-stricken. She cannot handle this loss. She cannot let go, especially because of the way that this happened. And so she turns the earth to constant winter. All the trees lose their leaves, all the plants die, and nothing is happening. And everybody says, now, wait a second. The people on earth cannot live through this. You have got to do something, Demeter. You cannot stay this way. So the gods kind of work it out. I don't remember the exact story, but they work it out so that half of the year, Persephone would stay in the underworld with Hades, and the other half, she would come and be with her mother. So obviously in the winter is when she's down in the underworld, and she's the queen, she's the goddess down there. And then she comes up to be with her mother, and her mother, the fertility goddess, allows spring to spring up and all the plants to bloom and all the green to come. But every fall, when it's time for Persephone to go away, she once again shuts down. So the idea of eliminating, she eliminated a little too much. She got caught a little bit too much in the letting go. She just let go of all of it. And this is an example of how our power of elimination never goes away. It's not like we have to get it. All of our spiritual powers are this way. We have them and we use them all of the time. But when we're not aware of the power that we have in that thing, we can sometimes let too much go. Like, for example, where in your life might you be allowing a practice that would help make you a better person, a healthier person, and you're letting it go, like you've slacked off of a diet routine or an exercise routine or friendships, meeting with your friends and doing something fun. Where have you let that go? So elimination works both ways. It's working all the time. How can we be more aware of this? And the next slide, I have a picture of St. Jude, just because there's not much known about Judas Thaddeus, which is the disciple that kind of reigns over this power of elimination. So each of the 12 powers has a disciple. There's 12 disciples, so there's 12 powers. And the power of elimination is covered by Judas Thaddeus, and we really just don't know that much about him. So I pulled a very traditional St. Jude picture out because I figured that would be what most people would know. The reason why St. Jude, I think, gets this credit of elimination is because he wrote the Epistle of Jude, and in that epistle, those letters, he was writing to people to warn them about false prophets, about following false teachings. And so what this power is really doing is calling us to eliminate any of the false beliefs, the underlying thoughts and beliefs that keep us from showing up as our best self, our highest self, which in unity we see as our Christ self. So any underlying belief or negativity or action that keeps us from showing up as our Christ self and shining our best light is what Jude or Judas Thaddeus is calling us to do with the power of elimination. This is a very active process. And there's a little story that kind of signifies this. I don't know if you've ever heard it. It's this guy, he's running from a tiger, and he falls into this really deep crevasse. And he's falling, and he grabs onto a branch, and he's holding on, and he yells, "Is there anybody there?" He's like holding on desperately. And he says, "Yes, I'm here." And he's like, "God, is that you?" And he says, "Yes, my son, it is me. What should I do? Can you help me?" He says, "Just let go." And he stops for a second, and he says, "Is there anybody else up there?" It is a difficult, active process to let go. In the fall, this is the best time. My dad was really good with flowers and trees, one of his things. The trees, did you know how active of a process it is for the trees to lose their leaves? The leaf doesn't just fall. The tree pushes it off. The tree actively gets rid of the leaf. Now, it is partly that the leaf has to want to go, and there's some hormones, tree hormones that happen in this. So there's one chemical that's created to glue the leaf to the tree. There's another chemical that's created to dissolve the glue and let it fall. And what happens is in the fall, all that nice green chlorophyll that helps the trees collect its energy is drawn back. So the tree is pulling back its energy from a part that's no longer serving it. Because in a few weeks, there's not going to be enough sunlight, there's not going to be enough water, and if the tree doesn't get rid of the leaves, the tree will die. Think about the metaphor behind that. So what happens is it starts creating more of the dissolving chemical than it does the stabilizing, holding on chemical. And finally, the leaf is literally pushed off by that chemical that's being released by the tree. So your energy preservation is what this is about. Where in your life are you drained of energy? And it's keeping you from showing up as your very best self. Letting go and letting grow, because all of that chlorophyll that's sucked up back into the branches of the tree takes all that. Nitrogen is very precious to a plant. Plants need nitrogen to grow. It breaks apart all of the chlorophyll into the parts that it needs. It reserves it in the branches, and it uses those to grow buds in the spring. So as we let go and we pull back, we are invited to pull back not everything, but take the learning. Take the learning that we have from the letting go and grow. Let go and grow. On to the next slide. Some people believe holding on and hanging in there are signs of great strength. However, there are times when it takes much more strength to know when to let go and then do it. Knowing when to let go and do it. So how do you know when? How do you know when it's time? I want to draw you back to that energy. If your energy is being drained, and not the kind of drained where like I'm just working all the time and boy, I've just had a lot of hard work and I know, it's the kind of drain where like you are not getting you're not getting in return the same kind of energy that you are putting forth. So it's not equal or not anywhere equal. We know that sometimes you're going to be putting more energy out than you get back, but eventually it comes back around and there's a balancing. There are just times like that in our lives. But if you're never getting that return on the energy investment you're putting forth, then it's time to make some space for that energy to release so that something can return that energy to you. I know in school it's like that with me. This first part of the year, I teach 7th grade science, and it takes a lot of work up front to get a classroom to run. And so I know for the first couple months, I'm going to put a lot more energy in, and then I'm going to get that all back later because I've taught procedures and routines, and I've taught rules that will allow them to learn and me to teach. And by the end of the year, it'll all be great. However, it's not always like that when you're with 12-year-olds all day. 12 and 13-year-olds, they are their own special curriculum. They are their own very special teachers. And I believe that I am blessed by a curriculum that not all other people get in life. And one is just being at school, to be present with them, to show up as my highest and best self. Sometimes I need to let school be at school, and it's really hard. Because life is hard, and I know the backstories of these kids. It's hard not to let their stories come home with me. It's hard not to let those buttons that they've pushed all day come home with me and come in. And so I'm snappy with my husband because of something happened with some kid during that day when I'm really kind of mad at myself because I just wish I was more present and I could just let that go. So I started this really important little routine that I have when I come home for letting go. And I have my school book bag, so it's my backpack. And every day I come home and take off that backpack. And after I take it off, I sit down in the chair for just a few minutes, and I mentally put in that backpack everything that happened that day. So this child, I just learned this really horrible thing about this child. I'm going to put that in the bag. I have all this stuff on my desk. I have a to-do list. The to-do list is on my desk, ready to go. It can wait until tomorrow. I'm going to put it in the bag. So I mentally see myself putting these things in the bag. And even sometimes like a little person goes in the bag. And then I bless the bag. And I trust that in the universal design, that letting that go is going to give me space to show up better for all of those things tomorrow. However, there came a point past year when this wasn't working. And I discovered that I had an underlying belief that I needed to let go of. And it's the belief that everything is important. So everything in that bag was important at one point. Like, it's all important because I need control over this classroom. That's what it technically was. I need them to be successful. I need to control how they're going to feel about this so they want to do it. I need to control what they can do on their ability level and make 4 different assignments so that they can each be successful, because if they can't be successful, then they're not going to feel welcome in my classroom. And I need to control how they feel, how successful they are, their emotions and their actions in my room. Whew. Those are all the things holding up this one big belief: everything is important. And so I realized some things I can just put in the bag. Other things take some time, and piece by piece, it's a process, a practice that doesn't just happen once. It happens every day, and it's a process of taking down each of those little things that were holding up that big belief of everything's important. So I challenge you to think, where in your life are you holding up a really big idea and you've had a hard time letting go of it? And the reason why you've had a hard time letting go of it is because there's a whole bunch of little beliefs holding it up. It's like a consciousness. You've created a whole big consciousness around this. And to develop a practice where every single day you can take just one little piece and get one little bit of space around it. The next slide, please. Happiness can be attained by letting go, including letting go of your ideas about happiness. I found in my case, this was it. I thought I'd be happy when my kids were all successful and I had done a million things to make them successful and make them feel a certain way in my class and make it all, control it so it all turned out a certain way in the lesson. And what I realized is when I gave up all of those things, the happiness came in the connection that I had, allowing the kids to work it out for themselves. So where in your life are you trying to control someone, coerce them, convince them? Where are you trying to change them to make your pain go away and make you happy? Those are some things that you might want to be called to let go of this fall. The next slide, please. In the Bible, Jesus says it this way: I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. Every branch that does not bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. John 15, 1-2. So Jesus is inviting us to just trust that divine timing, trust divine order, knowing that as we let go, we're making space. We're making space for God to work it out. We're making space for us to show up as the best version of ourselves possible so that we can flow with that law. We can flow with God. We can listen and be open to the guidance, and we can show up as that. So where can you shine your light a little brighter? Think of some place in your life that shining that light would make all the difference for you. Being calmer, being more confident, being courageous and compassionate. And then think about, what could you let go of to make space? What are you trying to control that you can make space for this? Because when you let go and give space, that's where you grow. You let go and you let grow. Remember, the pruning makes the vine, makes the bush so much bigger than it would have if it would have just been one straggly little piece. The next slide, please. It It's not a matter of letting go always. You would, if you could, instead of let it go, we should probably say, let it be. Probably a little bit more often. Sometimes the let it be is harder for me than the letting go. And I think in a lot of ways, letting go of little things allows me to let it be more confidently and with more compassion. It takes away anything that's covering that light to shine and allows it to be. The idea of letting go can really create a lot of tension. I mean, just think about it. Think of something you want to let go, and automatically there's this tension around it. There's that quote that says, anything I've ever let go of has claw marks. And it's because it's this tension that we have in it. And the letting be creates space. And thinking about letting be and being with it, we're not judging it. We're not putting an expectation on it. We're not shooting on it. We're just letting it be, not trying to fix it, make it bad or wrong. And so there's no separation there. So that tension that we feel sometimes in the letting go is some kind of separation that has been created that we need to fix in the letting go process. But letting be, there is no judgment and there is no criticism. I learned this some time ago when my house was feeling very chaotic. And it was because my younger stepchildren were both going through rehab at the time. So they both had substance abuse problems. My house felt very chaotic. And so what I decided to do was follow this plan that's called RAIN. And first I would just realize and recognize and know what I'm feeling, that chaos where I needed to let go, and allow it, A-R, recognize, A, allow. I would allow it to be there. And then I would turn in and inquire, what does it need from me to allow it just to be there and be okay? What do I need to allow myself to be there? Can I be with this? How can I be with this? And then nurture it. Once you find out what it is that it needs to be, what you need to be with it, then give that to yourself. Talk to yourself like your very best friend. And what would you say to your very best friend in that situation? In the Bible, the next slide, Jesus says it this way, therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. And so we let it go, and we just be with it. So the last slide here, before we go on to the affirmation today, is from Rumi. Be like a tree, and let the dead leaves drop. Be like a tree, and let the dead leaves drop. This week, I want to leave you with this little story. Over the past couple weeks, I had butterflies in my classroom. You know, that we had them, they were caterpillars. You ever done this with a kid or a grandkid? And then they turned into cocoons. And then one day the kids would go, oh, we have butterflies. And one of them did not go through the complete molting process. If you ever notice, if you remember this, the butterflies have like a red, it looks like blood. That will be all over everything because they literally liquefy themselves and then rearrange their cells and put themselves all back together, and not all the parts get used. It's like Lego boxes. There's always a few extra pieces. Except for I had a butterfly that didn't drop its extra pieces. It had too much on its thorax. And you could tell it was red. It was supposed to be liquefied. And when I went to let them go, as a class, we went to let them go, this one couldn't fly away. Which to me in itself was very metaphoric. What am I holding? I'm thinking about this talk and letting go, and he couldn't fly away because he was literally holding on and incorporating into his body more than he should have, and now he was weighed down too much and could not fly. So I kept him, and I put some bananas and oranges, I smashed him up, put him in there, and every day he'd flap a little bit more. And then I saw him hopping and flapping, and then I saw him near the top. And so on Friday, I opened it up, and he flew away. So I just want to leave you with that even if you're holding on to something, even if you can't let it go, this little guy just let it be, and with some strength, a little bit of nurturing, a little bit of mommying, giving it a little bit of extra nurturing, a little time to flap its wing, build up some muscle, it was able to fly, and so can you. So use that power of elimination this week. Think about where you can let go to grow. And our affirmation for this week is I balance action with acceptance, letting go and letting be in perfect harmony. Let's say this together. I balance action with acceptance, letting go and letting be in perfect harmony. Thank you, everyone.